Hi everyone, join me today as we paint this window in watercolor. Today I'm going to be sketching in my Potentate square sketchbook. It contains 100% cotton hot press paper and the pages are square, 19 by 19 centimeter, and I really like the deckled edges to the paper. I'm going to show the full sketching process in the video today, but if you wish to skip that part and trace the sketch reference, then the free traceable sketch reference can be found in the link in the description box below. I will also put the link on the screen now. Just type this link into your web browser and it will take you to my Patreon page, and if you scroll down to the bottom of that, then the PDF for the sketch reference will be at the bottom of that page. I'm going to use just a normal 2B pencil to do my pencil sketching first. So I'm going to sort of figure out where the middle of my page is, and I'm going to work my window around that. Let's start by doing a square or rectangle. That'll be the outside of our window. I'm doing my pencil sort of light at the bottom because I'm going to draw my window boxes over that, but I just need to do this in order to get my proportions right first. Then I'm going to do a line down the middle. Then if I think of where the center will be for the window panes, what I'm then going to do is top and a bottom window pane for each side. I'm just going to fade this line out as I go down because I know it's going to be covered by my plants in the window box. Then let's do another little line around the inside. Right, let's do a frame around that window. And then just like we did the little edge around there, we want to do the same here. Alright, so now let's think about the window boxes. I'm just going to lighten this line here because the window boxes will come in place there. Alright, so down the middle I want to do a rectangular box on each side. And then I'm just making space for the flowers I'm going to put inside. I can put those lines back in if I need to, but I'm just getting rid of them. I'm just doing basic guides here because this isn't going to be an ink and watercolor. I'm going to paint on top of the pencil. So I just want to have the freedom to not have hard edges to what I'm putting down here. It's just a guide as to what the plan is. And then let's just do a little bit of a side of that box there so we can do a shadow. Alright, let's do the windowsill now. Alright, I'm happy with that. Let's do the shutters. So if you think about where the bottom of the window was before I rubbed it out, it was there. So don't do your shutter too high. Think about where that bottom was and then come out. That'll be the bottom. Then we'll take it all the way up to the top. And then whatever that width was, this is the side of the window here and that's the center. That's how wide you're wanting the shutter to be. And then I'm going to do inside the shutter the same sort of size as the window panes were. And then I want it to be a louvered window, so I'm going to do a few horizontal lines across each panel. and the same on the right. Alright, then I think we need to have a slightly visible edge on two of the sides of the shutters, just so that they look more three-dimensional and that we can get a bit of shadow in. So I'm going to make that the left and the bottom of each. So coming out at an angle, I can then join those. If you are familiar with my channel, you will know that the majority of the time I start with the sketch already on the page, just because of the amount of time that it takes to sketch it. But I do from time to time get requests to show the sketching process, and now you can see how long that takes. I'm interested to know whether having the sketching phase shown is of interest to you. So let me know in the comments box below, so I know how to work future videos. Then I want to do, I don't know what that, when you've got a thing on the top of the window, but I want to do that because it'll add some interest, and also it gives us some nice edges on which to do some shadows later. So I'll do that one in the middle, then horizontal. Then I want to, I'll just do a short edge on each side. Then we're going to do a curve. I'm going to aim for there, just below. And then the tricky thing is to get it symmetrical on the other side. Alright, then I'm going to be conservative, but I am going to use my ruler just to give me some guidelines for horizontal. I want to do the nice big stone blocks, but because it goes on both sides, it's sometimes difficult to keep it all the same on both sides. So although I don't like super straight edges in my paintings, I think it is useful in this case, just so that we get the bricks to line up on both sides. And in there as well. And then I'm also just going to give myself some guidelines for the vertical sections of the bricks. And then because I've lost track of it, I'm going to use, this row is going to match that one up there. So I'm just using that as a guide. Alright, and that's the sketch done. I'm just going to neaten up some of these lines so that I can scan it for those who are wanting to copy it, and I'll join you in a minute. I did a bit of Googling just to remind myself that this stone at the top was called a cornice, and that middle stone there is the keystone, so that I've been able to sort out in my mind. Also, whilst I was sorting the sketching out for scanning, I have added the bit of edging to the cornice and the keystone, and I also had forgotten to put the hinges in for the window, so I've done that. So I think I'm going to work on the background first, because I find that the most intimidating and also just the part that I am least interested in. So I want to do that and also give it a chance to dry so that we can later come and do the in-between areas as well. I want to get a little bit of texture, and so that it's not all the same color, which is very easy to do when the area is so large. So I think I'm going to work with 2 or 3 colors. I'm thinking possibly buff titanium, maybe some Naples yellow. Let me just see how we go. So the buff titanium, I'm just going to prep here. Naples yellow, and then maybe some raw sienna just for, or yellow ochre, whatever you've got on hand, just for something different. I think I'm going to get a bigger brush to put some water down. So this is my silver black velvet size 12. I'm going to put water on everything, even the cornice and so on. I'm just going to avoid the window and the shutters. I want this to be a bit of a vignette, so to have a undefined edge. So I'm taking the water up to the edge. Just use my other brush to get to the edges. Oh, maybe the cornice I would want it to be more white, right? So actually let me lift that. I'll work around it. Alright, so I'm going to pick up the buff titanium first, just dot it around all over the place. Then I'll pick up my Naples yellow. Maybe it's a little bit too yellow. I'll mix it in there with the buff titanium. And likewise the raw sienna, let's just dot that in there as well. And then I'm just going to make sure I've gone up to the edges of everything, particularly in these areas here that are smaller and that can dry quickly. Alright, I can breathe a sigh of relief that that is done, and now I'm going to let this dry completely. That's completely dry now, so I'm going to mix up a base color for my shutters. I want a vintage sort of green, and hooker's green on its own I think is going to be a little bright, so I'll put some of that down. But then I'm going to add some Cascade green. And maybe even a little bit of Payne's Grey, just to tone it down a bit. A little bit more Payne's Grey, I think. And I'm going to put it on the shutters quite watery so that I can come in and do shadows and the lines on the panels, etc. later. So I'm working wet on dry. I didn't put any water down first, but I might water the colour down as I'm putting it on the shutter. If you are enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate it if you would click the like button. Doing this really helps to grow my small YouTube channel, and it also tells YouTube to share videos like this with other people like you who might enjoy it too. Also, let me know what you think in the comments box below. I reply to every comment and really appreciate your feedback. And then I think I'm going to do the base color of the corners just in straight buff titanium. So I'll get my brush watery and I'm just going to work straight from the pan. And then one thing I realized I skipped out in the previous layer was this is the inside of the same wall that the window is set into. So I should have done that at the same time. So I'm just going to water this color down that's in my palette. This will be in shadow anyway because it's where the window turns in. But I'm just going to do it now. Then in the flower boxes, I think maybe I want to do some flowers. I want to have the freedom to do the foliage as freely as I want to. So I think I'm going to get some masking fluid and mask out where I want the flowers to go. And I'm going to do the flowers at the end. So I'm just going to take some Winsor & Newton masking fluid. Oh gosh, way too much. I'm going to just need the tiniest amount. And I've got a silicone applicator brush here, which makes it so much easier just to put the masking fluid down. I'm just doing the flowers irregularly shaped. So I'm going to have to let that dry before I come back to it, but that's fine. I think I'm going to do the, what is this thing called? The thing that the flower puts on. I think I'm also going to do it, the ledge, let's just call it that. I'm also going to do it in buff titanium. Windowsill, am I right? And let me do, I want to do a nice effect in the window of the sky and a shadow effect of a tree casting shadow on the window. So we've got time to do that. Let's do that. So I'm going to put a base of cerulean blue. I'm not in love with the Daniel Smith cerulean blue. I do find it a little bit insipid. So I'm going to mix it with a little bit of cobalt blue as well. Yeah, I like that. And I'm going to put that for the window. I'm just going to water that down a little. What I'll also do is leave an occasional bit of white on the window, because that could be the sun reflecting on it. Then I'm going to get a very small piece of tissue paper. Just going to bunch it up, and wanting to lift a little bit that it looks a bit like clouds. Don't pick up your tissue paper and then dab it down again, because then you'll put your blue on the edge of the window. So keep on moving it so that you're tapping down with dry every time. I like that. And I'm going to do the shadow of my tree in an additional layer, which is going to start on this top left side. That's why I've left that a little bit darker. So I'm happy with that. And there's quite a lot going on here that's wet, so I'm just going to let it dry. Now I'm going to do a first layer on the greenery. To start with, I'm going to get some Hansa Yellow Medium. And I'm going to put that down over the entire area of the bushes in a watery consistency. Then I'm going to pick up some sap green. I'm going to drop this in from the bottom so that it can bleed upwards. It's quite wet, but that's okay. I don't want it to blend all the way up to the top, but I do want it to be able to blend on its own. So I'm going to start at the bottom and just see where I'm at with my moisture level. You can see it is blending upwards, which is absolutely fine. But I'll just start conservatively at the bottom here whilst it's still so wet. And what I might actually do is just get something. I've got a pen here that I'll put under just to keep it at a slight tilt, just so that it blends upwards less. It all just depends on how much water you've put down in the first place. I'm going to rinse off my brush, dry it off, just assist with the blending here so that I don't get a hard edge to the green. Now that I've done that and it's drying a little bit, I can pick up that green in a medium consistency or a thickish consistency again and repeat from the bottom. And what I'm going to do is just prepare a shadow color. I'm going to mix that sap green with a little bit of indigo. And I'm just going to drop it in at the bottom again. I really like the amount of contrast I've obtained here. I've been able to preserve the lights up at the top and then go right down to a nice intense shadow color underneath. And again, I'm just lifting where I'm getting a bit of an edge to the green, just helping it all blend. And now I'm going to let it dry. Now that that is all dry, I'm going to start working on some shadows and edges. I'm going to do a shadow around the edges of the cornice. So to do that, I'm going to get my buff titanium and I'm going to add a little bit of neutral tint to it. And then I'm going to do those shorter sides. Then I'm going to do the same thing working on the shutters. I'm going to do the edges and the inner rims and the louvered slats. So I'm going to mix up that hooker's green. I think that was actually the color there. Anyway, I'll work with what I've got here. And some cascade green. And to that, I'll add a bit of neutral tint. Alright, I'm going to pick up some of that and go down the two shorter sides first. If you are enjoying this video and you would like to make a donation to me, you can do so on my Buy Me a Coffee platform. I will put the link in the description box below as well as on the screen now. I'm sure you can appreciate that making tutorials like this along with the traceable sketch reference is an immense amount of work, and I appreciate any and all donations. If you have made a donation, thank you. Now I'm going to outline the inside of each panel. And then I'll do the horizontal slats at the same time. And the way we're going to make these slats look angled is to put a bit of a wedge shape at each end. It's almost like a triangle. And then I'm going to repeat this for the other three sections. And then I'm going to use weak-ish consistency burnt sienna mix just to do a first layer on the pots, but I'm going to want to come back in an additional layer to do shadows, so I just want to leave myself space to do that. So that's why my first layer will be quite watery. Then I'm going to take that same shadow color that I used up here and just put it on the edge of the window ledge. And maybe I'll just take a little bit of Payne's Grey and do the hinges. Alright, so I think I'm just going to give this a few minutes to dry so I don't smudge anything. Alright, what I want to do now is the shadow down the inside of the window frame, as well as inside the windows themselves. So for this outer one here, I'm going to use this shadow that I'd mixed up earlier, but I'm going to add a bit of neutral tint to it, or you could add Payne's Grey. That's a little bit dark for what I'm looking for, because I'm still going to want one layer darker than that. Alright, that's fine, I think. Alright, I'm going to do that to push this window back inside this wall, do around the inside of this. I'm just going to add a bit of that to the edge of my windowsill. I'd like that a little bit darker. Then I'm going to get my burnt sienna in a thicker consistency. The first thing I'm going to do is do the short side of this pot that is facing away. I haven't forgotten about the inside of those windows. I just want to give the edge a chance to dry. And then I'm going to use that burnt sienna to do the shadow of the bushes on the pots. Alright, so for inside the rim of the window, I'm just going to take, it doesn't matter if it's Payne's Grey or neutral tint, and I'm just going to take it in a really weak consistency and just take it around all four sides here. And also, because all I've got around the rim here and down the center is pencil, I'm just going to trace the line with the same color with my brush really thin. I have to turn my book. I'm trying to keep it straight for the camera, but I simply just can't do this long line without turning my book. Now I want to do the cement between all of the blocks. So I'm going to use this color that I've already got mixed up here. And although I used a ruler to do my lines there, I need to be aware of that. And I'm going to round my edges and try and get the lines not completely straight as I'm putting that in. So I've almost got a purposeful wobble here. I'm just adding a little bit extra in here in places along the top where it's lighter. And I think what I'm also going to do with the shadow color, just to separate the top of this inset from the two sides, because there would be more shadow from the top, I'm just going to take it and do another layer just on this top section inside the wall here. Just make sure to not put your hand in what you've worked in down here. I'm even going to add a bit of neutral tint to that. Alright, let's let that dry. So now I'm just using an eraser to remove the masking fluid. And I'm going to work on that shadow in the window that I was talking about, as well as the flowers. So for the shadow, I'm going to, maybe I'll use Payne's Grey. Just going to mix up some Payne's Grey here. I'm going to start with it watery, and then I'll come in and darken it when I want to. So, as I said, let's start with the tree quite dense here. I'm just leaving a few light gaps there. And then as we get into the adjacent panes, I'm going to spread that out a bit. And now what I'll do is I'll go back and just put a bit more in back here where I thought the tree was thicker and denser. Yeah, I think that adds a nice bit of drama and a bit of a reflection in the glass there. So for the flowers, what color should we do? I think I'm going to go with quinacridone magenta. Starting with its watery, and I'll darken it up when I need to. So I'm also just stippling this around and getting it in an uneven consistency, also leaving a few white light gaps here and there. Right, then just going to get that in a thicker consistency on my brush and see if I need to do any contrast. So particularly in the ones that are dry or almost dry, I can add a little bit of contrast. I'm just using the very tip of my brush. And then I'm going to let this dry whilst I go and get the macaroni cheese on the go for dinner. So it's dry completely, and then we'll come back for the final drama of the shadow layer. That'll be fun. Right, the macaroni cheese is in the oven, so I've got half an hour before that comes out. My grown-up son is visiting at the moment, and that's his favorite, so I had to make it. Right, so we are ready for the shadows now, and by that I mean the shadows that all of these objects are casting on the wall. And before we do our shadows, we need to decide on a sun direction so that we can then decide which side the shadows are going to go on. So when I did the shadows that the flowers were casting on the pots down here, I concentrated on underneath and then to the left of each one, and I didn't paint on the right. So in my mind already I had the sun coming from the right hand side. So that means everywhere that I work around here, if the sun is coming from the right, then shadows of all of these things are going to be on the left and below, because the sun will always be from above. It's never from below when it comes to a window most of the time. So that's what I need to keep in mind. And for a shadow color, I've already got this color mixed up here, which I kind of used for the wall, and I'm happy with that. What I might just do is add a little bit of Payne's Grey to it. And then we've just got to be careful, work carefully as we go through. So let me do this shutter first. So there's going to be a shadow down the left and underneath, and it's going to be at an angle, the shadow, because of the sun being from the top right, the shadow is going to be at an angle. So, oh, and also what I'm going to do, just to make it less scary for when we come to the window, because the window, it's important to not have a wiggly line. I'm just going to use the ruler just to give a guideline of where I want that shadow to go, of, you know, the up above there casting a shadow down here. This is really going to make it pop. I think this shadow on the window is the most important shadow of all. So that's the frame around the outside, but everything else is on the inside. So let's do one line across the inside, and then just to make it that it's inset from the frames around it only slightly, I'm going to lift my ruler ever so slightly, and you'll see that that will make an impact, and then do a line just on the frame above there. That just gives us a little bit more confidence as we are working in that area. Everything else I'm just going to wing it. So back to the shutter. So let's go a little bit down from the top, angle in, let's go straight down. I want a bit more Payne's Grey there. Just remember, the sunnier the day, the darker the shadow. So I can see from the blue sky that I've got that this is a sunny day. So therefore I've got to be a little bit stronger with my shadows. Then when we get down to the bottom here, that same angle that I used at the top will come out below, and I'll come out with the same angle here, and then join them up. I'm just going to add a bit more in at the top. Right, so using that same principle, let's go and do the, what is this? Cornice. I'm going to go from here and angle down, join them. Over here, I'm going to angle down, and I'm going to sweep the whole way across. I'll worry about the cornerstone in a minute. Keystone, not cornerstone. Alright, so with the keystone, I'm going to go down over here, cut it short there, and also there'll be a shadow on this side. Alright, let's do the scary window one. It's not scary actually because it's dead straight. Just make sure to go up to the line that you have prepared. And you can go across the actual window as well. I think for me that's the most pivotal shadow. I think it just makes the whole thing come to life. We need to do more on the inside here, but I'm just going to take a pause and let that dry before I come and address that. Alright, let's do here. So this flower box, like that. This one is to the left and to the bottom. Alright, so this, the words are gone, ledge. So the bottom of it is actually under here. That's sticking out. So let's do this and see what it looks like. Right, then this window I'm going to repeat on the left and the bottom, what I did over here. Alright, let's go to the window. So I'm going to follow the same upward line that I did there. And I'll double up on the top. Alright, let's do a little bit of shadow. I'm going to darken it and just do under the hinges. Just under and to the left. And I don't know if the flowers would cast a shadow on the window behind them, but let's do it anyway. And there's the final sketch. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please hit the like button and let me know what you think in the comments box below. Until next time, bye for now.